Because if you, for example, need to make some simulations about the new drugs, you need a lot of data sets of this genetical data. And now these companies, for example, you take your like biological materials, send to them, and they make your genetical tests. But their business is not charge you maybe $100 for it. Their business is to sell your
Yeah.
to
Hi.
sell your data for some medical R&D because it's very very expensive.
Yeah.
And you can change it. That's the shitty thing with like this kind of bio data. Like you cannot change your fingerprint or your DNA. That's forever.
Because, for example, if genetic company they need to test, for example, a new drug on like black Americans that are from maybe some Caribbean region, very specific areas, and if you have a large data set of genetics, you can do it easily. So, and the idea was that this data can be really worth something, and you can sell it multiple times for different researchers.
Oh, that's a good point. So
Yeah.
it's not worth that much just to you. Is it fine? I'm recording. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure I've given
No, I'm.
What's next?
No, yeah. No, you're not visible. I'm like.
I
doing-
provide
okay.
consent.
Okay.
You took a song for the shirt.
He wants to charge you.
Yeah, so you get a revenue share of. No, this is not people. It's just for.
I want my 0.0001 die.
Yes.
Right now.
You get X die.
Now.
Yeah. So no, I was saying that because it's not worth that much just to you, but if someone has it and then does like business development on top of it for like eternity, it's worth like an infinite amount of money given the long enough time, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
But I also think like maybe monetary value is not really the right way to look at it because it's just almost too simplistic. So I look at identity, for example, as a way of getting access to something that you need, something that you want, and that's something that you want or need may not just be money. So for example, giving someone access to your financial records so they can rate you or something like that, I'm not necessarily interested in charging them 23 cents for that data where I might actually
the
be interested in
consequences
the
for
loan.
you are
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah,
And
so
it's-
the loan is actually what I'm interested in. So if it's part of an exchange, like I could provide my data to be able to get something, that is a way more interesting thing than just trying to minimize it.
But
down
isn't it
into a
always
couple of cents.
incentive misaligned? Like, what if there was a company? I know there is one new insurance company that does it like this. So they have a flat profit.
Lemonade?
Huh?
Maybe it is lemonade?
Yes, lemonade. Yeah. So I think they have like 20% profits, and that's it. Like with the rest, they just take this whatever happens. So maybe if you paid for being rated, and you shared your data, then not for free, then you would get better deals because there are like two different parties. There's like this rating agency, and then there's the actual source of funding.
But in the rating, it's very important to have, what you are compared with. Yeah. So it's not only your data. There needs to be some kind of a average available. So we are still providing the data to build up this aggregated average and yours data to be compared with.
Yeah.
So in this model that you've mentioned, actually sharing only your data when you are applying for something will not be enough because there won't be this aggregated average to be compared with.
Yeah. No, it's an extremely complicated thing, which is why I feel like it doesn't really help to oversimplify it using these like things like, you need to make money from your data. I think like Wired, they had an article about this as well the other day.
Yeah.
I've seen this repeatedly.
It's almost like the last thing, right?
Well, but the reality of it is that it's not really. It's way too simplistic thing. It's a very good point. Like this data is worth way more in aggregate, than it is on its own.
Yeah. Do you have a point? Yes. I mean, you have a great beard. I hope you have a point. We need you in the video.
It's less a commercial point, but a point of freedom. I mean, if people have information about my habits, what I like, what I don't like, they can restrict me. So for me, the ownership or the self-sovereignty of my data is more important for my freedom, commercial freedom, economic freedom, or freedom, like in the USA they call it liberty, but it's libertad, but it's freedom of being able to do stuff or to not being inserted in a certain model that makes people make money.
Yeah.
And there's no price on that.
Yeah.
There's no
If
price.
yeah.
And that I agree, and that is where the self-sovereignty part comes in. So it's not about ownership; it's about my rights. It's like here, I want, and that's also again, I'm the frigging libertarian anarcho-capitalist guy here, and I'm actually saying GDPR is actually not that
Good enough.
not that it's not that bad. When it comes to, is it perfect? No, but that's really what it's about, right?
And if we talk about the social score system that they are implementing and testing in China, well, that's what we have to fight against with this kind of technologies. These are where we have to use the technology as a tool, as a knife, and not to stab someone, but to make food and to feed people.
Yeah.
So
There's something I'm concerned about. So even with GDPR and the way our approach at Ocean, so I'm talking, but because you're really handsome, like I'm filming you, yeah. So
Do you want me to hold it?
yeah, thank you. Yeah. Even with Ocean, you can compute on people's data, like even if it's like their own data and they have sovereignty over it. But then you can do whatever you want with the models that you build or information that you extract. I'm thinking like if 2 million different companies or I don't know bots did this, and then they just conspired together to put the metadata together, they would probably have a very clear picture of the underlying raw naked data. So and like for me, this is a problem with GDPR. So Ocean's approach, like in our V2, is compute data. So you can do computation on premise or on like their own servers, and we guarantee that this is like actually going to happen, and you just get the models, right? But what if you did it so many times that you actually had like almost all the relevant points of the data, and like I don't know what's the solution.
Yeah.
But I mean, in machine learning, you use these functionalities when you train the models that are nonlinear. You cannot do the back transformation. You're just saving a really small part of it. So I don't know. That's why it's going to be basically impossible to reconstruct the data just from a model.
Yes, but like if there are 1 million models that have 1 million different inferences, then if you put them together, it's almost like
At a certain point of time, it will be reconstructed.
Reverse engineering.
Kind of.
Yeah, like recreating AI bots based on the dead poets, existing literature. That is so cool. So you have like this base layer AI that's generic, and then it uses like existing books and whatever things that they've done, and then it comes up with an approximation of their personality, like Picasso. Imagine we could pay $10 and have Picasso sitting with us in this room. That would be super cool. I don't think he would like it, but
Yeah, but these are two different kind of models. One of them are generating stuff, and the other ones are classifying stuff. So you have to differentiate between them. The classifying kind of models, cannot reconstruct anything. They're just trying to minimize the data into some output. So I mean, there you cannot just revert it and then create something. So that's not the way it works, because there would be just too many possibilities. So you cannot get back from just a classification to just a result. I don't think this is just.
But is it mathematically proven that given enough classifications, if you are in different dimensions classifying the same person, you can't get back to the underlying data or an approximation? I know with one you can't, because you've reduced the.
But I mean, it depends on the amount of layers. Each layer probably has less neurons than the last one. So then, I mean, the amount of classifications of this person you would need very, very high. And if you just discriminating between the person and the car or something with your model, then you don't even know that it's the same person. So it becomes kind of a really,
You
really
need
long.
so many algorithms as there are data.
More relevant.
Infinity basically, right? So
It's a good point. Or you need as many algorithms as identifiable types of data.
that's the minimum because
Minimum.
you don't know what's there in the data, right? So,
But then the amount
way.
of compute you need to compute all of this becomes
I guess
too
they
much.
can, yeah. So I'm thinking like we might achieve data sovereignty, but then like these decentralized, tiny, not evil companies, they'll get acquired or they band together. And imagine like Facebook wants to acquire 2,000 dApps.
Yeah.
Isn't there any possibility of something going wrong when they do this?
I mean, you do.
I guess so.
That's why you make a DAO, and then they cannot acquire it. In a way,
They
Well,
can.
right.
They can.
you
Yeah.
should make it in a way that nobody can acquire it. Then it becomes a common.
Just the
DAO.
fact that it's owned by some people, it means they can be coerced into giving up their ownership. Like the last resort is they could give their wallet to Facebook, and I mean by that they give up their identity. That's really interesting. Do you think there's a chance that like your Ethereum address becomes your identity? And so I'm a little bit worried about this. I have a bunch of addresses.
I mean, let's be real. An Ethereum address is, particularly the way that we use it in the Ethereum industry today, is essentially a huge GDPR nightmare. And the dApp developers who are telling people to use the same address for everything are essentially setting themselves up for GDPR liability.
Oh,
And
why?
Because you are, first of all, it is an address is basically PII if there's a bunch of activity on it, particularly if there's a lot of different kinds of activity. So you can now
Or
say,
if you've once identified yourself with Twitter, then it's directly linked, right?
well, yeah, and that's a some people I know would be unhappy.
$3?
Who? I'm not sure.
Three-
what
okay,
yeah,
okay.
but you know, a lot of people do this.
Oh,
kind of
that's
thing,
why
but
you
the-
guys forked away. So $3 is into connecting to your real. Oh, yeah. You also know something about.
No. Just, I feel like I'm in the middle of a private conversation.
No, because I talked to I think Brian is CEO of $3 or CTO.
Michael.
Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a chat with him, so it sounds interesting.
Yeah, so I think like basically most of the Web3 space, the way that we do everything, the way everything's tied to your MetaMask account, tied to your your single address that you do everything on, is a really big problem, and people are not doing much to improve this situation. We've been arguing about this for a long time in the Ethereum space, and people keep we did smart contract wallets 3 years ago with social recovery and all of this kind of thing. We moved away from it specifically because the cost of it means that you are now will encourage you to have even more stuff tied to your single identity. So it gets worse and worse and
Well,
worse.
what's the
And now,
solution? I mean,
the solution is that you have lots of different accounts, and the solution is no
like you know
perfect-
what Apple is doing basically. Apple with login with Apple ID, like they generate new emails and
Yeah.
passwords, right?
Yeah, so we as part of our Ethereum solution in Uport, we've been doing for about close to 2 years now is what we call app-specific account. You request an account, and it'll give you an address specifically for this account. Now, this is not perfect because you also now need to fund this account, right? And so there.
So you need like meta accounts or like meta
not meta accounts, they're real accounts, but because they're used
for the
something
payment part.
specifically,
Yeah.
you can start, necessarily correlating this.
Right.
Your the address that you tweeted out with your Gnosis stuff,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
your Spank chain, with your all of these different kinds of things that people now happily have in a single Ethereum address today, right? And I feel it's a really big problem, and I've been arguing with people in the Ethereum space for years right now. And people say, we don't hold the keys, it's not our problem. But the fact of the matter is GDPR.
You're coercing people into violating GDPR.
Yeah, so GDPR will, and according to the GDPR and blockchain paper that they released last year, which is not, this is not law, it's just the current recommendations by the EU Blockchain Observatory, is that developers, like excuse that we don't control the keys is actually not an excuse. You're still a controller. If you're telling the user to do something really, really stupid on the blockchain, you are going to be liable for this, right? And we as a community, we need to like wake up and try and fix this kind of thing, because it's, first of all, you might be worried once you might start, once people eventually start suing you for this kind of thing, but more importantly, it's the wrong thing to do. It's literally the wrong thing to do.
So that's like your best marketing, that use Uport, because like you're fucked if you don't.
Well, you need to get as much data off the chain as possible. Use the blockchain for the areas that needs to be on the blockchain.
Okay.
And that is really the important part. Like we've learned over the years now that the important part of using blockchain is to use it as little as possible. Use it when you absolutely need to.
And I think you also need to have like a security check for whenever something's being recorded on blockchain, that it goes through like a smart contract that analyzes this and says like this and this part are not really the best stored on blockchain, maybe use this service. Like it's like a smart contract debugging, but at a very meta level.
Yeah, it would be interesting to have some kind of like privacy linter kind of thing, but I mean there's so many bad patterns that are going on, and I feel like the last at least the last two DevCons, every single solution I've seen for improved user onboarding makes the situation absolutely worse. And
except people, #people shill. Yeah. Should we go for pizza?
Yeah, let's go for pizza.
Bye everyone.